So I'm honestly pretty shocked that John said this because, what's up guys, welcome back to another video here on the channel. We're going to dive right into some pretty crazy comments made by John Boyega, the actor who played Finn in the sequel trilogies. Obviously Finn's character wasn't handled well, and over the years John Boyega, the actor who played him, has had a lot of thoughts, and it's kind of been all over the place. He sort of lashed out at fans sometimes, but now it seems like he's kind of coming back to the fans saying, hey, sequel trilogy wasn't handled well, especially my character, and this is what I have to say about it. So recently, John Boyega attended a convention somewhere down south in the United States. I believe it was FloridaCon, and he had a lot to say, so we're going to dive into that. I'm going to give you my thoughts, but more importantly, let's look at what John Boyega had to say about the Star Wars sequel trilogy and what he would do if he could remake it, pretty much. Reposted by Culture Crave on Twitter, John Boyega was asked what he would do if he could remake the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Quote, "It would be mad. First of all, we're not getting rid of Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and all these people. We're not doing that. The first thing we're going to do is fulfill their story, fulfill their legacy. We're going to make a good moment of handing on the baton. Luke Skywalker wouldn't be disappearing on a rock. Hell no. Standing there and he's like a projector? I would want to give those characters way more. Our new characters will not be overpowered in these movies. They won't just grab stuff and know what to do with it. No. You gotta struggle like every other character in this franchise. I'd look to the Old Republic stories, and that's very interesting that he says that, and see what we can add to the continuation of that. I would definitely want to see Force Unleashed stories in there. I would try to expand the Star Wars universe as much as possible while respecting the lore. If we're expanding the lore, we have to do it within the respective boundaries that stay true." So I'm honestly pretty shocked that John said this because, to my knowledge, John is going to be back in the employment of Disney and he's going to continue on. I mean, there's really one or two possibilities here, right? Possibility number one is that Disney's like, listen, our bad. You can go out and say whatever you want. Possibility number two is that John is kind of going off the rails. He knows he was done a disservice. He sees that Disney settled with Gina Carano and he's like, you know what? I'm going to be employed by you and I'm going to say whatever the hell I want. But a lot of what John is saying is not wrong. In fact, it's correct. Like, you do want to take care of the legacy of these characters. You do want these characters to grow through struggle. You don't want it to be like Rey, where she's just lifting rocks and all of a sudden she's like a Jedi Master and now she's a Palpatine and then she's a Skywalker. It doesn't really work like that. The story writing is bad, and it's nice to see that someone, not only internal, right? This is someone who's vital to the sequels. This is someone who's vital to the next batch of movies in that Rey trilogy if it happens. Very important that someone like John speaks up and says this. This has 3.4 million views on Twitter, and there are tons of articles about it. So I'm curious to see what comes of it. One thing that caught my eye in here is that he said he'd look to Old Republic stories. So sometimes actors, they slip up in a way and they just kind of cover it up in the moment. I wonder if there are going to be Old Republic stories. I wonder if John could possibly be cast in an Old Republic story and reprise the role of another character. That would be pretty cool too. But more importantly, John understands that these characters need to be honored. And he says it right here, not getting rid of Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and all these people. Honor them the right way. Have Han see Luke again, right? There's no reason for Luke to go back in the Millennium Falcon and be like, damn, the last time I saw my friend was before I was a loser, and now he died, and I didn't get to see him because I was moping on a random planet somewhere because I'm angry about some kid that screwed up and betrayed me. It's just not very Luke-like. So he kind of touches on the big three things here. He touches on honoring the legacy of the characters in an appropriate way, building the new characters in a way that entails failure, conviction, learning, and coming back stronger, and just learning to go through that power progression. I think that's so important with Star Wars. I would say if this were like a new trilogy of movies, meaning like a completely new IP that's not Star Wars, I would say it's okay to just juice up the characters right away because you have to drive the narrative. But Star Wars is a franchise of a multitude of films, a multitude of TV shows, a multitude of animated shows, and it all contributes to the main 9 films, or the main 6 films with the addition of the sequels, which, for argument's sake, it's canon, so it is a part of the main films, right? All that stuff is like contributing decorations, amplifying the greatness of those films. So he's hitting on these major points, and it would be nice, and I would assume that Disney executives, they okay him to say stuff like this. More importantly, that they're listening to what he's saying. And it was just cool to see that he threw in mention of the Old Republic. Kathleen Kennedy famously said that there's no source material. And so it's cool to see a fan of Star Wars is saying there is source material and it's in the Old Republic and maybe we should take a look at that. He even pays homage to the games here, like The Force Unleashed. Now, me personally, do I want to see Force Unleashed stuff? Not really. I think the games are good. Maybe bring back Sam Witwer's Galen Merrick character somewhere in there as like an honorable mention or some sort of cameo. Test it out, see how it feels, you know? And you know, I think this is just a sign of where Star Wars is. Star Wars is in a place that's mired not only in controversy, but just mediocrity. But it's nice to see that we have people who love Star Wars, even though John has said some really stupid things sometimes. Like at some point he labeled like a large sect of the fandom as racist, I think. You know, people make dumb comments and they mess up. I'm not sure if he ever apologized for it. I'm sure he didn't mean it that way. Maybe it was taken out of context. I don't really want to talk about it. It's disappointing when I hear stuff like that from people whose IP and whose acting career I actively support by supporting Star Wars, you know? But it's nice to see that at least in this context, John is very passionate about Star Wars. He cares about Star Wars. He cares about the direction, and he kind of knows where the direction should be heading based on the current time that we're in with Star Wars. So yeah, those are like my thoughts. I was honestly, like, I remember when I read this the first time, I was like, holy crap, I can't believe he said that, and I can't believe he's still employed by Lucasfilm, and I can't believe they didn't tell him, hey, fix that. Don't say stuff like that, you know? So it's pretty freaking crazy. I guess people are just tired of crappy Star Wars, including one of the main actors in those series of films, which, in my opinion, the sequel trilogies were not good. But with that being said, I'm curious to know what you think about what John Boyega said. Do you think the executives at Star Wars are listening to John Boyega, or do you think John Boyega is just fed up and he's just talking about his true feelings on Star Wars because he cares about it so much? I know that's what we do here every day on the channel. We talk about how we feel about Star Wars, how much we love it, and how we think we can improve things we want to see, things we don't want to see. That's the purpose of having an awesome community with awesome friends like you. So sound off in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your viewership is super appreciated on the channel. And until next time, everyone, stay safe out there. May the Force be with you always.